Hello and welcome to Focus on Liberia. Welcome and welcome to yet another edition of our program, Roundtable Africa. I'm Ansony here moderating, and as always, comfortably seated is Sekou Keller. Sekou, another edition of our program here, Roundtable Africa. I'm excited about this one. Welcome. How you doing today?
I'm doing good, Ansony. Thank you very much for having me, and thanks to our viewers. I'm happy to be here today to discuss this topic that we started 2 weeks ago.
Thank you so very much. Also, always comfortably seated is Mr. Edward Amara, focus on Liberia West African correspondent based in Freetown, Sierra Leone. Edward, we continue with the facts about extreme poverty in Africa. How are you feeling today, sir?
I'm doing good and entangled in the poverty striking country because I think I'm so happy to discussing a kind of program that have direct impact on the continent that I am. I'm happy. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome millions of viewers across the world, and we actually value their contribution. Hope this discussion will be very fruitful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Edward. Edward is the co-host of this program, Roundtable Africa, and Mr. Sekou Keller is the host. And I'm Ansony here, always helping to moderate here in this very engaging, educational, and fruitful discussion here at Roundtable Africa. And folks, if you are wondering today, we continue with this very important topic, extreme poverty in Africa. That is what we are discussing today. I know some of you just want to talk about politics, the noise around, but this topic that we have, poverty, that is the topic we should all be talking about. Oh, yes, that is the topic. And this is why we are here to discuss the topic, extreme poverty in Africa. Before I can bring in Mr. Sekou Keller and Edward, gentlemen, I have some facts that I'm going to share with you. But folks, before we do that, here are the questions that we have. What are the consequences of extreme poverty? And in this case, in Africa. And we also want to know, how did Japan and China defeat extreme poverty in half a century? Can we Africans do that? Can Africa do that? Does the continent have it to do it? Well, we will discuss that. And also, how do we end extreme poverty in Africa? These gentlemen will be able to give you some information on that. But here is what we want to show you. We got some statistics. We did some research, and we're going to share that with you before we start the discussion. 780 million people, 11% of the world population, live in extreme poverty on less than 1.9 per day. That is $1.90 a day. Also, at least 14 million children suffer from severe acute malnutrition around the world. Severe acute malnutrition is the direct cause of death for 2 million children every year, where mostly in Africa. Also, every day, 1,000 children under 5 die from illnesses like diarrhea, dysentery, and cholera caused by contaminated water and inadequate sanitation. So you're asking the question, what is extreme poverty? We did some research and we got some numbers for you also. 413.3 million people in Sub-Saharan Africa living in what? Poverty. And also in South Asia, we have 216.4 million people living in poverty. If you think this topic is not important, then think again. 47.2 million in East Asia and the Pacific, 25.9 million in Latin America and the Caribbean, 18.6 million in Middle East and North Africa. You might be wondering, why are we giving you these numbers? 7.1 million in Europe and Central Asia. Now, here is the one you need to know. It is estimated that about 104 million children under 5 are living in extreme poverty, while that number extends to and 28 million for children under 18. This is World Bank record of 2016. This is the one that's going to shock you. Of the total number of people or millions of people living in poverty, you have 413.3 million living in sub-Saharan Africa alone, whereas the rest of the world has 315.2 million. So sub-Saharan Africa alone is dominating the rest of the world when it comes to poverty. That's what makes this topic serious. Gentlemen, let me bring you in, Sekou. You listening to the statistic. We did our research there. What do you make of those numbers?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for bringing out that statistics, give you a clear picture of what is at stake or what we are discussing here. So it's very clear that Africa is the poorest in terms of material condition, in terms of the definition of poverty we gave, which is not having enough income or material resources to cater for basic needs. We find that Africa is the poorest. We have the poorest population on the statistics just show that we have the highest number of poor people and people who live in extreme poverty. And it's obvious. You can look at the life expectancy in most African countries. It's around 54. If you live up to the age of 54, that means you live very long in Africa. So when people say all the time, oh, Africa have the youngest population, they don't ask what happened to the older people. People die quick. So that's why when they have children, before they get to 54, they are gone. And the young people they don't have opportunity. So the cycle continues. So it's very serious. The number you just called here tell you that the next generation is already at risk. So that's why poverty is an issue that must be discussed, and it must be something that everyone must take very seriously if we want to continue to exist as a people.
Mr. Edward Amara, my brother, you are in Freetown, Sierra Leone. You are a Liberian also. You are living this subject we're talking about. I live it too. So I know what you're in right now. Look at the numbers, the statistics that we research and put out there. What does that mean to the ordinary man in Africa today?
No, thank you very much. I think it's very sad when you read about those numbers and you think that we are not only talking about numbers, we are talking about the physical impact of such thing like that on the African population. You see, poverty is like a curse on the African continent. It has contributed to a lot of devastating things on this continent that young people like us found it very difficult to transverse within it. You may feel that you are living in wealth when you name the natural resources that are in Africa that would have changed the continent positively. Unfortunately, on the saddest part of it, you may realize that poverty is actually striking. Because when you take a physical look on the society, it is absolutely very difficult to even think that the numbers that they are speaking is actually real, because you can only do research and give facts with areas that you have visited. So if you take the entire look about the African society, you may even realize that those numbers are far beyond the one that they are projecting. When you are naming poverty number in Africa, to me, it's just like the current COVID-19. There are certain areas that if somebody dies, no medical person went there and never made such a check background. So nobody may not know what killed the person. So that person may not be related to COVID-19. The same thing, poverty. Yeah. Honestly speaking, if you visit certain community, you may start to wonder. Poverty is actually striking, it is killing the ambition of youth, it's having a kind of negative concomitant effect on Africa. So it's actually rare and it's very difficult fighting when you are engulfed within the system.
Thank you so very much. Again, let's get started here, gentlemen, with this very important topic that we have for today. As you guys know, we always bring out the questions that people may have on their mind as we discuss the topic. So let's get into it. Let's start with this question. What are the consequences of extreme poverty in Africa? Let's start with you, Mr. Keller.
Yes, thank you very much. So like we rightly define poverty, we say it's a socio-economic condition. So when we're looking at the consequences as well, we know that the consequences will be also social and economic. So when we look at the social consequences, for example, we know that poverty dehumanizes people. Look at it. Once the most important thing in life is dignity. Okay, a human being, you have your dignity intact. That's the first thing you need. But what poverty does, it takes away that dignity. It dehumanizes a population to a point where they become submissive to any group of people or foreign groups of people. So that's very important to note. Anywhere you go in the world, poor people are dehumanized. Their dignity is taken away. So all that's left for them is for them to be susceptible to anything at all. Secondly, you look at every poor country, there is the sovereignty of that nation is compromised because people come in the name of aid, in the name of helping, in the name of NGO, and what they do is that they come actually for their own interest and they try to plunge that nation into further crisis. That's what has been happening in most poor countries. You look at Haiti, for example. So when people come in the name of aid or to help, they are trying to get their own interest and try to plunge the country into further crisis. That's why your sovereignty of no poor nation will talk about sovereignty. You don't have sovereignty at all. It's other outside nations that come in that control your economic, social, and political affairs. Even your politicians are compromised. Your leaders are compromised. It's very, very, very dangerous. And if poverty is not contained, I'm telling you, the end is to wipe out a group of people. That's what is going to happen. If Africa does not contain poverty, Africans will be wiped out. People think that it's impossible. Well, I'll give an example. Like 10,000 BC, Africans live in the Sahara. The Sahara desert that you are seeing there, that they call no man's land, it was actually a grassland. Scientists are proving that Africans were living there. The people you call West Africans today, East African, most of all were living in that Sahara. But things went wrong. Some ethnic group disappeared. Okay, when we're not able to take our situation, we're not able to stand up and fight nature and fight the social economic condition of that time and stand up, we lost the battle. And nature does not give a damn. If you do not find solution to a social economic problem, you will be wiped out. So today, what we are looking at in the world is a battle for resources. Nations are battling for resources. All powerful countries that you are seeing that are coming to our aid, they are all battling for their resources, and they are not there to help you to develop at their own detriment. They are there to help their own population. So poverty will dehumanize a population. It will take away your dignity, and it will compromise the sovereignty of any nation. And lastly, it will lead to cultural regression. The cultural regression here is that the inability for a population to develop, to improve, to invent. Because your brain, psychologically, the brain of the people will be in survival mode. Everybody is thinking to survive, how to eat. There is no innovation. There is no program to talk about innovating. It doesn't happen. In fact, the Greek philosopher said, in a hungry nation of poverty and war, you cannot produce philosophers. You cannot produce philosophers in a hungry and war-torn, poverty-stricken nation. So these days, a lot of things are at stake. Our culture is at stake. Our humanity is at stake. Our dignity as a people is at stake. And now it's very, very serious. And if you don't look at these consequences very seriously, if you look at Africa today, you see what is happening. We are dying. People think that our population is increasing, but we are actually dying. We cannot afford, if a major outbreak come out today, we cannot afford to make vaccines. We are going to disappear. We saw what Ebola did to Sierra Leone and Liberia. Okay? And when we come here as immigrants, in order to put in rich country, we cannot permeate the social economic structure that they are set in place here. We will always be at the bottom of the pyramid. So our social location will always make us to be at the bottom of the human range. And we are at risk of being exterminated if something is not done.
And before I get to Edward here, you talk about the consequences of poverty. And one of the things that you mentioned is our sovereignty is threatened. In fact, some may argue that we don't even have one. And one of the justification they give is you can't even feed yourself. You don't make anything that you use. So you claim to be a sovereign nation. So on that, how in any way are our leaders themselves the leader of Africa when we don't have a sovereignty in the first place?
Absolutely, absolutely. If you look at these leaders that are contributing, that are also what I call the architects of poverty, they themselves are infected. They don't see it. Something happened in Liberia a few years back. I don't know if it was Vanish Sherman or somebody. He collapsed. There was a meeting going on in the National Assembly or so, maybe at the Capitol building. He collapsed and there was no ambulance. Okay, a fellow lawmaker have to tow him like an animal and then lower a board and put him on. That right there is the result of the bad system they created. Because the poor people at home cannot even call 911 for ambulance to pick them up. And they themselves, their life is at risk because sometimes when they collapse like that, before they were rushed into Ghana, where they run to go treat themselves, they die in the plane or something terrible happened to them. Because the system they build, the thing is only poor people are around suffering. They themselves have been affected. So our leaders are aware, they are conscious, even though they don't say it, they know that we are not a sovereign nation. They know that our sovereignty is compromised. They know that everything they are doing over there is a dictate from the West. Look at Liberia as a good example. Whenever a U.S. embassy put out a statement, you see immediately your national government will adjust. When the United States Embassy put out a statement, immediately you see your government will take action. We've seen it several times. These people are not, they are not independent. We don't have sovereign state. And poverty is one of the contributing factors.
And Sekou, what is responsible for that?
Well, like we said before, all these things, you have to go back from the beginning. It's because we have refused to do what is necessary. When we get to China and Japan, we'll tell you what they did when they got their independence, when they saw what was at stake, they knew what poverty was, they knew what it meant to be dominated. They did something that we did not do, and we'll get to that.
All right, thank you. Let me come to Edward. He's been waiting here. Edward, can you unmute yourself there? The consequence of this poverty, I call it a demon that is killing Africans, not only Africans, but killing young people's dreams. Tell me about the consequences of this poverty. You are experiencing it right now.
Thank you very much. I just listened keenly to the submission of Mr. Kelly. I think it's a sad effect on the African continent. If up to now, since we are one of the oldest places in the world, if not the oldest, up to now we can't be able to live above water because of the name poverty. You see, poverty has a holistic effect on the African continent. It affects each and every aspect of our societal setting. It has a kind of socio-economic and political effect. It is a name of poverty that we don't regard ourselves to be independent. Because when you call yourself independent, you must be able to decide your own fate, make your own political rules without any other foreign intervention. But because of this poverty, one of the effects is that poverty does not only come with what you take, eat, and go through your pocket, but even the brain. We are mentally colonized and our brain are draining on a daily basis because of poverty. Take a common example, you look at our school system here. When you enter into a school system, you must expect to meet an ID grant where children or adult goes to learn. But you will find out that where children or adult go to learn, the area is poverty striking. There are certain things that you must learn in school. You can't learn about these things. At the end of the day, you are undereducated. The type of education that you have received, because you need to receive a careful and quality education. But in Africa, we receive education, but the education is not being carefully taught and the quality is lacking. So most of the time you find out that you are living in a kind of forgotten life. You may be living in oblivion. Everything about you will be like, just like a year, meeting every new things into life. Our medical system also is absolutely poor. Take a common example, you watch at Africa. Why do you think we are even afraid that this particular India variant, when it hits Africa, it is definitely going to take us out? It is because you watch at our medical setup, the area is absolutely poor. How many nurses are trained and qualified? Even those who are trained and qualified, how many protective equipment do they have to protect themselves against the COVID-19 before they could protect the patient? All of these areas are
We seems to be having a little glitch there with our man, Edward Amara. Good.
Some are trained, but they are not receiving anything that may assist the educational setup. You get, as I was saying, you may get to some of our school setting system. Immediately enter there, what do you sense? It sense poverty. You get into our lab system, there are no enough book, no researches are being done, and even the teacher who is teaching is not adequately prepared. How do you expect him to give you a timely, quality information that may exonerate you into the future? It's actually bad. Even when you watch at the politicians, there are certain politicians who do not ought to represent us, but it's because of poverty they are representing us. There are certain community you need careful quality people who are extrovert into certain things, that they should be the people that are representing us. So the effect of poverty on Africa is so negative to an extent that we have no right to decide our own fate. Why do you think the international community always impose themselves on Africa and we do not have the right to fight against them? It is because if we fail to do what they want to do, they impose their culture, their norms, their beliefs, what's their spirituality on us. But at the end of the day, we are left into a vulnerable position, and there no area for us to react because there is
Edward,
poverty. So when they were talking about poverty, yeah, poverty have just affected the society. It has drained our natural way of thinking and even clouded our way of justifying things. There are times you may see an African
Edward,
leader.
let me ask the question. Can we
There are times you may see
also,
an African leader supporting things that they shouldn't support.
Edward, can
Supporting
you hear
things that they
me?
shouldn't support. Are you
Edward,
getting me?
yeah, I'm getting you. I want to ask the question. Can we hold poverty responsible for the bad leaders, we have in Africa, all across Africa today? Because I'm asking a question. Most voters continue to vote these leaders over and over when these leaders continue to give them the same bad result. Can we hold poverty responsible for that? Because they have experienced, these leaders, giving them nothing.
Thank you very much. I think the mic, but the volume is a little bit dropping. But I think if we are asking about politicians who we are voting in.
No, my question is, yeah, can we say poverty is responsible for the poor leaders that we have in Africa as a whole?
Yes, yes, yes. Because let me tell you one thing. When you are watching, when you want to vote leaders in, you watch at the quality of the population. What do you think in Europe, in America, and others? I'm not saying they do not elect bad leaders. They elect bad and corrupt leaders. But when they're electing bad and corrupt leaders, their number may not exceed the good one. But you rush them into Africa, you watch at the youth that we are having. The population of Africa is constructed with youth. Unfortunately, majority of those youth are not dedicated. So they do not even know the impact, because when actually the electorate are not adequately educated on the type of leadership that they want and what type of government that leader will impose on them and how are they going to benefit from it, they will end up electing the wrong leaders. Most of the time you see they easily sell their birthright in the name of voting. They give them certain things in exchange of votes, and they retain their mentality will be clouded to go and vote. So most of the bad leaders are elected in Africa are as a result of poverty, because those electing them are not educated. Had they been educated, they would have known what exactly to vote for, what not to do. You can even ask certain citizens in Liberia, ask them what type of government are they living under in Liberia. They will never tell you. All they will tell you there is democracy. And there are certain people, even when their rights are being violated, they don't even know how to fight about it. So poverty is responsible for everything. Poverty is responsible for bad leaders coming into power. And since so long they know that, by allowing poverty to continue traversing into Africa, they will have the opportunity to still continue lording it over their heads. So poverty is just responsible for everything.
Thank you so very much, Edward. Again, folks, you are watching Roundtable Africa here. I focus on Liberia with Sekou Keller and Edward Amara. I'm Ansony here with this gentleman as we discuss a very important topic, the facts about extreme poverty in Africa. We started 2 weeks ago now, and now we want to talk about solution because there has to be solution to this problem. We have talked about this poverty. We all live it. So let's come to solution. But before we come to what solutions can we Africans employ, let's hear how others dealing. So Sekou, starting with you again, how did Japan and China defeat extreme poverty in half a century? How did they do it?
Thank you very much. As we all are aware, Japan and China are among the world superpowers today. Economically, politically, they are heavyweights from Asia and on the global scene as well. Nobody jokes with them. But how did they do it? 50 years ago, 25, 30 years ago, these countries were considered third world countries. They were considered poor. They were also ranked about similarly like African countries. But today they are called first world country. They're civilized. They are powerful. What happened? Well, I said two things happened: modernization instead of development. They choose modernization instead of development, and they choose sovereignty over co-development. I will explain. Modernization, what is modernization and what is development? Modernization is a process where a country look at holistically, they look at the important structures in the country. They say, look, we want to move our country from one level, one system or way of life to another. And there are key sectors that we must change in order to do that. So they go ahead and change those things. The entire nation get involved. Consciousness, the social, political, and cultural transformation, where the educational system, the infrastructure, the way of production, they make a conscious effort. Whether any party comes to power, everybody have that one agenda that this is what we are about to do within 10 or 20 years. So the initiator of modernization process, and then they show the Western system or the Western handout, which they call development. What was that? That development meant that, oh, look, you will work along with the West. We will be able to bring you our institution. We will work with you. We will be able to give you a better education. We will build your universities. Then little by little, you will imitate us and you will develop and you will get to our level. China and Japan said no. Any living thing that is created naturally has to develop. A child that is born, that child will eventually crawl and walk. What that child needs is the necessary food, necessary care that child needs for them to grow. But the growth is natural. Development is natural. Human being is meant to develop. They are meant to overcome nature and then change their environment. But there are necessary things that must be done. Number one, culture. The Chinese and the Japanese went on cultural revolution. They maintained their culture, they modernized it. Two, they maintained their, they changed their mode of production. They decided and said, look, the archaic way of producing food, the way of doing things, we have to change it immediately. No longer somebody be farming in our country using cutlass and hoe. We have to move to tractors. We have to do it on a national level. We have to change. They did it in that way. So these people witnessed World War II. And they saw at the end of the World War II, the technology was the determining factor in that war. They saw that technology determined the winner of that war. So they said technology will become our religion. Technology will become our religion. And that's what we are going to use to transform our nation. So Mao Zedong of China, he's the one who was the savior of modern China. Mao started some, and he did not succeed at once. He started a lot of modernization process. Some failed. A lot of people died. He started a lot of programs. But at the end of the day, the Chinese people got it, that it was about modernization and not copying with the West, but doing it in their own way. And they chose sovereignty. What are the characteristics of a sovereign nation? Number one, you have military economic sovereignty. You do not allow another nation to come and have a base in your country, come and control your people. They have sovereignty, their culture. They did not see Western languages as a vehicle to development. They said, no, no matter how our Japanese or Chinese language look, that's where our development is. That's where our imagination is. That's where our development will be. So we have to bring it to the level that we want. And they saw that buying food or buying things from Europe, buying clothes from Europe or doing things from Europe, it's not going to happen. We have to produce. We have to produce what we eat and what we wear. That's what is important. Once we can do that, then we can now speak as other nations. So they went to that process. They focused on technology and modernized every sector, the agriculture, they modernized the clothes production, they modernized everything. Even the school system, everybody, the culture, the history, how it is taught in the school, all was geared toward reformation of the mind of the people. If you look at many African countries today, since we had our independence, there is no single country that has even done a national movie project to show the ancient culture of the people and how their ancestors overcame difficulty to be able to inspire the new generation to overcome their own situation. Nothing. Turkey right now, they are on a revolutionary process of changing their nation. They are doing a national movie project. Sometimes it's even fiction, but to show how their forefathers were powerful, they were warriors, how they overcame. But what we do in our education system is to prove that we were nothing, is to prove that our culture is worthless, is to prove that the Western culture is powerful. So we are not even close to development yet. We have not done what Japan and China has done. That is modernization and sovereignty. If we choose those two things, we can do it. Wow. You cannot move forward without modernizing your institutions. You cannot be modern. You can't be talking about modernity in Liberia, where you have country where people are using cutlasses. They are still farming with cutlasses. You are not ready. You are not ready.
Sekou, I think you lay it there, folks. You heard it for yourself. The thing is, what I got from all that you lay out here is that first, we have to accept who we are, know who we are, and then look at the things that we have that we rely on for survival. You talk about agriculture, it's in our land. I mean, rice farming, isn't that what our parents have been doing? But it has been on a low scale. How do we do it on a massive level? Have we accepted that the land is our most powerful resource? Do we know that? And how can we use it to improve our material condition? You talk about technology, talking about Japan and China. After the World War II, they realized that they didn't succeed in the world wars, because they didn't have better technology compared to the West and other countries. So they went to work and look into technology. Right now, Japan is one of the superpower when it comes to technology. They are making the best cars in the world compared to other countries. So we need to be able to modernize, like you said. Look at the beautiful shirt I'm wearing. How many of people are wearing that in the first place? Are we producing in mass quantity? If you walk down Broad Street today, you will see more people wearing clothes coming from Europe than clothes made in Africa and even Liberia. That is a problem. You talk about the language of the Chinese. You said in their language, they say, hey, our language represents our imagination and the expression of who we are as a people. We're not going to use the European language, but go in all our schools. We are even ashamed to teach our own dialect. So how are we?
To add to what you just said before I forget it, when Nigeria got independent, the northern part of Nigeria were having a textile industry from the ancient period. They were the one producing clothes, because most of the people in that northern Nigeria, they were Muslim. So they were producing these gowns and what have you. They have a whole traditional textile industry in Kano, Kaduna, that was supplying most of West Africa. When the Doka Flare started coming in, they used clothes. That industry collapsed. Everybody started wearing jeans and t-shirts. Billions of dollars is being spent from used clothes. These people wear used pants and used shoes, and they put it in a container and send to us. And we killed our industry to produce clothes. And we think it's development.
And by using the European clothes, we are making them rich and making us poor, because the money that's coming to Europe or the West, that money is supposed to stay in Africa. Let me come to you, Mr. Edward Amara. We live this poverty. You said it right. We are the odious continent in the world, Africa. Everything about the world today started from Africa based on my reading of history. Even if you do anthropology, where are the people getting most of the antifacts in the world? That in Africa. Around 80 to 95% of the antifacts are coming from Africa. That show you that humans existed several thousand years ago in Africa, for example, in Tanzania, in Kenya, in all these places. Those are the rich places, South Africa. So let's come to you, Edward. We lived in poverty before. The Chinese, the Japanese, they did it. They beat it in half a century. How can we beat this devil called poverty, my friend?
No, thank you very much. I think it is better when you learn from the mistakes of another person, you always learn to make some perfect decision. Normally, I tell people it is not your condition, but the decision that you take within that particular situation may help you out. I think the colonizers, each time we try to ship it, we must blame them one or two ways. They were very careful. In the first place, Africa cannot change without having a careful quality education. I'm not when we talk about education, we have three types of education. We have the formal, informal, and non-formal type of education. I think those who colonized us, we are so crafty enough. What they did, having knowing that Africa is blessed with all the natural resources that it has to develop on our own. So if you empower the natural the human resources, they are going to cultivate the environment and changing it to something positive. What did they do? They introduce the formal type of education, where people just have the ability to learn, they become bookish, they speak, but they cannot produce anything. You watch at Japan, Japan did her own. Because even after the World War One or World War II, Japan suffered a lot. Look at when Hiroshima was destroyed, everything was just drowned. But Japan decided to do something. She revived her entire system. Because one thing, you cannot even maintain your culture, you cannot maintain your tradition, you cannot develop on your own, with depending on crude way of developing those things. You must be technologically inclined. When you watch at India, you watch at China, you watch at those Japan, they depend on technology. You look at South Korea, you look at Singapore. They may have been, their agriculture system may be good, but technology is the one that is absolutely improved. So what we need to do as an African continent, first we need to revisit our board system. Understand that the education that we are even receiving in Africa is not changing the African continent. We are giving people degrees without having a perfect impact on the continent that will revive the continent poverty status. So what we need to do, certain things that we have abandoned, it is because of the European mentality. Because when we are colonized, our brains are also colonized, especially those of our leaders. We are definitely brainwashed and even asked to value the continent of Europe or the Americas than Africa per se. So that is why it is in places like North America, even in South or Latin America, or in Europe, when they call you a farmer, you're a well-placed person. A farmer can be somebody who's well-to-do, fitly rich. Unfortunately, in Africa here, when they call you a farmer, you're a condemned person. You watch yourself like somebody who's very local, who does not even have the right to participate to certain things. It is because our farmers are not technologically inclined. We cannot keep on, as Sekou mentioned, you can't keep on brushing with your cutlass into the bush and expect to produce enough rice to feed your family at the end of the day. Certain things need to improve. So what we need to do, we already have the land. If this land is available, why not invest into technology? Most of the colleges and universities that we are having, they only have less technology impact. The influence over the favor of it is very less. So what we need to do, improve more on our technology. Europe developed on our own because there was technological revolution. As we are saying, we fail to maintain our culture and tradition. It is because maybe we may have experts who we are very educated, inclined how to write our own languages to maintain these languages, but do not have the technology to develop books on their own and to maintain this system. At the end of the day, those brain we are gone. Or if they have written book and those books are left, and we can read it to their understanding. All of those things, there was nothing left to be documented. So the type of education system that we're having is definitely affecting the African continent. Japan introduced three things. One, what they did, the Japan Social Development Fund. One, how many people who are in Liberia, even in Sierra Leone, who have monetary literacy? You must have financial literacy. Going to educate, because just because you're educated doesn't mean that you have financial literacy. You must be educated on how to utilize your money, how that money can accumulate another money on your own behalf. So all of those things we are there. That's why Japan introduced the Japan Social Development Fund. They loan money to everybody, the government. Like you are saying, COVID-19 is loaning money to what? To people who businesses are collapsing. So, but are we only doing it in the name of COVID-19? But let's assume that after COVID-19, our government can solicit from elsewhere and try to loan these traders who are on the street trekking to do certain things. Definitely, you may see they try to create a type of thing where they may have certain fund going to them and the other releasing over there. And Japan also created what they call the poverty reduction fund in those extreme rural areas. They give them money and they taught them how to use the money. At the end of the day, retrieval. You watch at the children. They created what they call children cafeteria, where you may see babysitters and who are taking charge of these children, teaching them at that low level, trying to cultivate things into them. Unfortunately, I am still holding our education system here. It's very wrong because We can't change this society. We can't change Africa positively. We do not have the type of education that will change it. And just going to college without having a kind of education that is technologically inclined, I'm afraid, but we may still continue to face troubles.
Edward, I agree with you there. And your expose, the emphasis was on education and not just, people earning degrees and all that, but you're talking about skills, technical, I mean, hands-on education. I mean, a kind of education once you leave the classroom, you gain the ability to produce something. You gain the ability to sell something. And that is the kind of education that we need. And you are right. And that's what Sekou laid out there when he was talking about modernization. How do we do things based on our cultural and material value to the extent that we increase production at a full scale capacity so that we can have surplus? Because when we have surplus, that means we'll have more money for education, we'll have more money for health, we'll have more money for roads. Then our children will not be hungry, and poverty and hunger, malaria, dysentery will not be killing them. Then they will have a future. What we see is our leaders running to the West. They get $10 million. Some people are celebrating them. This thing kills my spirit. Person gone to America. America give the last time I saw this headline about IMF is about to give Liberia 350 million. Some of our friends in the CDC, I'm a political guy, they are celebrating that. I just have my hair like that. I say, hey God, when will we stop? When was the last time a European leader left Europe and went to Africa to look for funding? Are we not humans ourselves? If you read history, Europe became developed out of agriculture. The history is so simple. When we talk about the Industrial Revolution, it started with agriculture and it started turning into technology. People started using cow to plow the farm, to grow more food. That's how it started. And they said, well, instead of using the animal, can we find a way for a machine to be moving? All this information available. Our people can't even give us simple internet in Liberia. Where's the vision? So for us to get out of the poverty, it got to be modernization, and Sekou is right. Sekou?
Yes. Are we on the last question now?
Yes.
Yes. So we are looking at how do we end extreme poverty. So that you need to look at where the problem is coming from. If you want to give solution, you look at where the root of the problem. Once you know that, then that's where the solution can be found. So as it concerns Africa today, the problem of Africa when it comes to poverty, there are three groups of people that are manufacturing this poverty. One, the intellectual elite. The intellectual elite. Two, the political elite. Three, the economic elite. These three groups of elites are they are key to the development or the failure of any nation. The intellectual elite are in the universities. They are the teachers. They are the thinkers. They are the ones who design our curriculum, who design our way of thinking. Our intellectual elite are also our traditional leaders that you are overlooking. And you are seeing them there. They have a lot of impact. Their voice mean a lot to how the people think in the rural area. The religious leaders are part of the intellectual elite. When they begin to tell the people that you are poor because there is a witchcraft on your roof, when they begin to tell the people you are poor, I will do some medicine for you and tie on your waist, then you will get job. When they begin to tell people go and fast 3 days and 3 nights, then you will get job. But they fail to tell them that the reason why you are poor is because the system has failed and you must join the revolution to make it work. So the intellectual elite contribute to this, to killing the brain of the people. Those who are designing our educational curriculum, they think it's about we going to school quoting Socrates, Hegel, quoting David Hume, quoting Aristotle. That is not it. We have to know what is the problem of Africa. As long as we don't solve the problem, those theories from the Greeks, those theories that you get from European mean nothing. When these people were creating this philosophy, they didn't have Africa in mind. In fact, Hegel, one of the greatest philosophers of Germany that many Africans like to quote, He said that Africa is not a historical place, that Africans are now humans, that they are not supposed to even be added when we are discussing human condition of improving. They are supposed to be classified among the horses and the donkeys that will be used to bring development. These are the philosophers you are quoting in your university as experts. Instead of you creating new philosophy and way of thinking for us, these people, they not include us in their way of thinking. The Marxists, the Lenin, all this theory that you want to bring into Africa. That's not the way the Chinese develop. The Chinese, they use their own way of thinking. They use Confucius philosophy. The Japanese use their own philosophy or way of thinking. We need to do that. So the intellectual elite are very important. What are they saying to the people? What are they saying in our educational institution? When we have elite coming on TV discussing tribe, discussing nonsense stuff, discussing what America will do for Liberia, discussing what American representatives said about Liberia. These are elite, these are intellectual elite, discussing what America thinks about Liberia development. These are intellectual elite. The economic elite. These are people who are conniving with multinational corporations, getting little profit out of their businesses and selling the destiny of their nation, and they don't really care. They are among us there. The Lebanese will come in there, they are lobbyists. They allow all these multinational corporations to come in without paying taxes. They are part of the corruption. Sometimes our political elite are part of the economic elite. They join forces with foreign people because of the little swimming pool they want to build with 3-4 apartment buildings. They lie down on it with poor people with zinc round houses surrounding them. They think that's progress. So the economic elite are very, very important. If we don't look at how they have to redefine economy as a distribution of prosperity.
And Sekou, I don't mean to cut you off. Hold on there, Sekou. Talking about the economic elite, finance ministers around Africa, they are in cahoots with the multilateral institution of the World Bank, taking loans from the Europeans, and then these Europeans are charging a huge interest at the end of the day, thereby burying Africa in further debt. We're in debt with these people, and we are paying these debts back with huge interest. And from what I learned, after the World War ended, when the institution came together to build Europe, the money they gave them, basically there was like no interest on that money. But what comes to Africa, look at the interest that they are charging. And these finance ministers and presidents around Africa who are in charge of the fiscal affairs of Africa are taking the loans from these people with the huge amount of interest on it. Why they can't tell them, well, we'll pay back the exact money, saying you are claiming that this money is intended to help poor Africans. Why should we pay interest on it? It's the same thing in America. You are a student and they give you student loan and you're paying almost 20% on it. How is that a help to that person? So we're talking about the economic elite. I wanted to chip that in, and this is what is burying Africa into debt and also in poverty.
Right. This economic elite that you are seeing, they've gone to Harvard University, they are able to quote Abraham Maslow law, they are able to quote. Look, that's not education, because what we are calling, we are looking for scientific solution for Africa problem. And what is science? To find definitive solution to practical problem. So it's in 1960, they have not found any practical solution to our problem. That means they have failed, no matter their degrees. These people, they are training this economic elite to come and destroy Africa. Africa is a good example. In the 80s and 90s, when Ufwe Boigny was having economic problem, he ran to the World Bank and said, how do I solve the problem? They said, we will give you Alassane Ouattara. We will give you Ouattara to come and solve your problem. What Ouattara did, Ouattara said you have to devalue the currency. That's what World Bank did, because all of them operating with a script. They devalued the currency, African economy went down. The same Ouattara is now the president. And what is he doing now? He's destroying the eco currency that have been planted in it by Tolba and Topman in the 40s, 50s, 60s, that West Africa should have one single currency. Ouattara is now being used by France to destroy that plan, to create another safer currency for the Francophone. See, this is how they create the economic elite to come and destabilize our countries That's why when a revolution happens, like for China, for example, when they had the Chinese revolution, they have to change with three groups of elites: the economic elite, the political elite, and the intellectual elite. If you don't systematically cleanse that area and replace them with new elites, you are bound to face problems. So many revolutions failed in Africa because with the political elite are replaced, but then they leave the economic elite, they leave the intellectual elite, and those people will still come back and destabilize the system. That's why no revolution has succeeded in Africa from the beginning. These three groups of elite must be dislodged. Political parties that take over must be conscious of the fact that if the intellectual elite, the political elite, and the economic elite are not changed, their mindset are not changed, the population will just be suffering.
Thank you, thank you. And let me come to you, Edward. Another thing I got up from Sekou there, you're talking about the intellectual elite, you're talking about the religious leaders in Africa being part of the intellectual elite who more than trying to disorientate the African mind as to what development is. These pastors are telling our people go for fast and prayer. Seriously? In the day and age? And I don't know, Eddie, if any of you came across this thing as this Ghanaian pastor, this gunfighter between Italy and England, he had the audacity in his church early that morning to prophesy that England was going to win. England did not win. If I were a member of that church, I'm out of that church. Well, we got to leave it there. So, Edward, we're talking about solutions in Africa. Our question we asking, my dear brother, how do we end the extreme poverty in Africa with the kind of mindset that we have?
No, thank you very much. I think Africans have been brainwashed for quite a long time. And we, as you mentioned, the category of people who are responsible for our downfall in Africa, especially when our economy is definitely being drained on a daily basis. I think the huge way on the scale of 10, I can give to the economic 2, intellectual 3, then the political elite we take 5. Because I'm talking about people who are deciding our fate here. Having said that, let's take a critical look at the typical African society. We almost have everything it takes for us to develop. Unfortunately, it is a kind of huge surprise that yet we are crying in poverty, wallowing in an opportunity that can change our society. But we have to we have to have the right leader to effect change into our society. We have Chinese, other European philosophers, but the political setting help them to develop their philosophy and effect that particular change. When China wanted to change, it was not democracy that they embraced to change their system. They developed a type of system, which is a kind of a communist system that will help China to develop on it. I believe that before this time, let us take a more example. Before the wind of democratization flow into Africa, most African countries have what they call political party system. And if you watch like North Africa, I think we are almost dealing with one political party system. And North Africa was well developed, strong into their economy, though they may have 1 or 2 political crises, but you may think we are very strong into the economy. When we introduce the wind of democracy, it destroys the Northern African country because we have to have change. So what we need to do, our constitution service is not helping us. We need to revisit everything, come on board, but let us elect leaders who are willing to change. But you cannot have those leaders who want to effect change into the African society if they are made up out of a corrupt system that is going to plan them. So we need a holistic change into those systems. We still need our intellectual elite around because we need people who are well grounded into our education system to give a careful and quality education for us to go before. Of course, our religious leader need to be brought to the book and told facts. At times, I can even behave like a free thinker because I don't want my mentality to be what, or my life to be strictly described, if not defined on a religious principle. Not everything that can definitely happen from religion. I believe that there are certain times when we think religiously. As he rightly quoted that pastor who bogusly went on television, flamboyantly, he was pronouncing that England is definitely going to beat Italy. At the end of the day, Italy won the game. So I don't know how he related with us. So we need to rethink, reconstruct our African society system, do some careful examination into the system. And one of the greatest areas that we need to come with changes is to change this political setup. We have age-old political parties into Africa that are even worshipped. Take common example in Sierra Leone here. Since the day of independence, we have APC and SAPP, and these are the two parties that are ruling this country. There's nothing positive. Nothing positive. Look at South Africa. When Nelson Mandela took over from the ANC, see what is happening today with Jacob Zuma. It's the same thing. You go into Zimbabwe, ZANU-PF is over there. You go into Tanzania, it's the same nonsense. You get to Ethiopia, it's the same nonsense. So we need to change the political system, because we need to have political philosophers who will constantly watch our constitution, develop political party policies that may develop, but we still have those because those who develop the political party policies only corrupted the system and meant to enrich themselves instead of the country. So we need a holistic change of system, have the right set of leadership, then get the right type of education. Because when the leadership is being changed, at least you can in fact change it to our education system. You can also impact change into the economic system. As long as they're up there, because they political leaders set examples, they create our policies and they do whatsoever thing. So I think we need a revolution into our political setup. Those 8 old political parties should go out. All old things are gone. Let us have new things and have people who are swimming with the current. They are no longer swimming with our own millennium. So I think that is my own submission. We really, really need to change the political setup. For changing the political setup, we can easily come down to the economic setup and the religious setup. All of those things will go off.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I think all of you are on point. In order to end poverty in Africa, it has to start with everybody continuing to say, modernization is the key, which includes agriculture. Let's increase production. Let's change the policies that we have. I mean, how we have one of the largest rubber plantation in Africa, and we can't even produce rubber glove. We have to be importing rubber glove. In Liberia, we're crying about maintaining a rubber glove at our hospitals when we are producing a rubber right there. How could our leaders miss this thing for nearly 174 years? At some point, we had the largest rubber plantation in the world. I don't know of anything that is produced in Liberia with rubber. How? And this is what we continue up to this day. There has not been a leader to put their foot down that, hey, Mr. Firestone, whatever your name is, starting next year, we want 50% of the rubber to be turned into finished products here. When will we get a leader to put that foot down for us to do that? Do you know how many jobs that will be created? The palm oil we're talking about, 100% shipping out of the country. We have coconut. And it's just all over the place. There has not been change to the idea. And we know that in Europe, these are the things that people are doing. They take the raw material from Africa, turn it into finished product, and send it back to us. So most of the raw material, or a good chunk of them coming from us, why can't we decide that we carry on the production? Or why can't the production be done here? This is how we increase wealth. And we think just by borrowing money from IMF all along, and production is being done in the West and being brought to Africa. And when we feel that we have the youngest population, and these young people, they don't have jobs, so some of them risking their life going all the way to Libya and crossing the sea, some of them dying at sea. And the only reason they're doing that because they want a job. And you have the land, you have the people, and you have your intellectual elites quoting Socrates at the University of Liberia. People gather under the Palava Hall and just throwing all kinds of tantrums. They call it wars. Political party themselves growing political zombie. This is my party. What has that party done for you? People need to get serious in our country. All across Africa. Look at Nigeria. Endowed with natural resources. The profession for most young Nigerian now is kidnapping. Kidnapping people to extort money for them to survive. When we have the huge deposit of crude oil in Nigeria. Nigeria want to tell me they can look for about $15 billion and turn that in agriculture and put our young people to work? What is Africa doing, my people? Africa need to wake up. Poverty is killing us. The future leader of Africa, the children of today, they are dying. from curable diseases like malaria and dysentery because our hospitals are not there for them. Well, folks, this is Roundtable Africa. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we will read your comments, and the two gentlemen will be able to respond.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Ansony here, along with Sekou Keller and Edward Amara here at Roundtable Africa, a program like no other where we highlight the issues of the continent of Africa. And in today's discussion, we are talking about poverty. Let's read some of your comments here from T. Sylvester Yinswa, following the show from the borough of Nigrutan, respectively. Thank you, Mr. Yinswa, for joining us there. Let's hear from the man, Cisse Goya. He's an affiliate here that focuses on Liberia. Could you please remind us of the qualifications of your guests? They are not guests. These guys are the hosts and co-hosts of this program. With respect to the topics, this will help your audience determine what rubrics to use in judging the information they provide. You see that while we're talking, he's talking about rubric. We're talking about practicality to teach Africa out of poverty. Have we not seen the best plans of all? You know, we have Samuel Jackson here. He is known to be an economist in a Liberian community, right? Something he said here, he said, look, you can have the best economic policy. If you don't implement it, it's practically useless. And you want to tell us about rubric here? Let's get to where, let's get our hands dirty and teach our people out of this poverty. The rubric will not do it. We've seen all kinds of rubric. Let's hear from Dulu Poor, highest poor people, highest in natural resources. What our problem? Let's have our say. He couldn't have nailed it. Can you believe that? Armstrong Jabba, the entire North Africa was black, but the Arab came from Europe and took over. Cisse again, is Sekou claiming that poverty is responsible for the creation of the savannas? No, that's not what he's saying. He said people were living there before, natural circumstance change, and maybe they were not prepared for that, and nature took over. Let's hear from Abraham Political Mondre Setu. I'm watching the entire team live from the office of the Western Bureau on the most talk about Bekubwe Avenue in Do community. These are the kind of things we're talking about. Africans with a powerful mind, because they have not been given the right education and tools, they are calling people named Bekubwe Avenue when I put bread on your table, my friend. But I love you. Cisse Goya again, is Sekou aware that America has a military base in Japan? Yes, I think Sekou does. In order for Africa to change, Africa needs revolutionary leaders. I don't know. You got to define our revolutionary leaders, because I've seen some, I've heard about some. Some of them say we have some in Liberia about where we are today. Tanu Gibson, can we develop without the assistance of developed or rich countries? If yes, how? Some countries may have done it in the past without the resources of other powerful countries. We can do it. Those countries you're talking about that are powerful today, they use their land and their people. That's how it all started. We can start that. The Industrial Revolution was not about agriculture. It was heavily scientific. You didn't get me well. I say it started from agriculture and translated into what? Technology. That's what I said, my good friend. Go and read that history again. I am strong on this one. Mr. Amara is right, because our political leaders are contributing towards poverty in Africa. Let's hear from the Tangobility. That was the Marshall Plan, was intended to reconstruct. Yeah, he said that's the Marshall Plan. When we're talking about, Europe was giving huge amount of money to redevelop. Yep, that was the Marshall Plan. Let's hear from Tanu again. I get your argument about debt, Ansony. If that's what the $10 million thing was about. A poor child cannot go to school without money. Someone has to pay for it. We cannot develop agriculture without the needed technology or skill. So we need others with these resources until we become independent to do it on our own. We need resources to develop the country. The question is, how do we get the resources without the help of powerful countries? This is the complex topic. How do we become? Sekou, you want to respond to that?
Yes, people always they keep making the case like we cannot do it without Europe. We cannot. Who helped Europe to gain the technology they had? They went to heaven and signed a pact with God, or there were angels that came down. Where was Europe in 3000 BC when you a black African built the Kushite Empire, when you invented writings, when you were doing a lot of stuff before the first Greek became educated? Where was the Europe when you invented science, chemistry, and all these things in the valley, in the Nile Valley, when there was no civilization in Europe? All these things we are talking about, the dependency culture. They believe that I cannot do it without the help of this person. It's inside a faulty way of reasoning. Africa is the only continent, according to analysts, that can close its border and live without the assistance of any other continent. It's the only continent that can do that, because we have the fresh water, we have the natural resources, we have the people, we have the ideas to do it. But we don't have the political will and the culture, because we have been dominated by outsiders. So these outsiders, they have their agents in our groups. And these agents are exploiting our little differences, our family fight, religion, tribe, all the regionalism. They are using the little thing to penetrate us. Every people have their own family quarrel, but our own family quarrel is being used against us to underdevelop our continent. We can have a cooperation with Europe, but it will not be on a master and servant relationship. We are looking for a mutual beneficial relationship where they are not masters, where they are not the one who set the price of cocoa and coffee, where they are not the one who determine what's the price of gold and diamond in the market. We want a relationship where we are equal, where we can also determine what kind of product we want to sell. Ivorians are not making cocoa because they drink coffee, because France needs it. Okay? The reason why we keep producing rubber, not because we got factories that want to process the material, is because Firestone needs it in America. So we are virtually being enslaved. Why can't we produce what we need and then also process what we need? We can decide, we can say, okay, France, this cocoa we're producing, we don't want it to be processed in Paris. The factory has to be here in Abidjan. Firestone, the processing of all the tires and the rubber has to be done in Liberia before it's taken, otherwise close your factory. We don't want any uranium, bauxite, all these things taken out. We want it to be processed so our youth can be employed. If you do that tomorrow, they declare war against you. So that's not a good relationship. That kind of parasitic relationship where they are the parasites sucking the blood out of you. It's not a good relationship. As the host, eventually you run out of blood and you're going to die. So
and
we
that's
don't
why
want
we
that.
are dying. And
That's
that's
why
why
we are dying.
That's
The
why
reason
we are
why
dying.
we are poor is not by accident. It's because our industrialization has been systematically blocked. And I'm telling people this. And who is making it happen? Our intellectual elite, our economic elite, and our political elite. They are the agents. So that's why when you have any political elite who is clear-headed, like Nkrumah, like Magufuli, they are taken out quickly.
Quickly.
Like Kwame, like the young man from
Sankara.
Burkina Faso, Sankara. They
Sankara.
are taken out. So we need those kind of political elite who will produce another economic elite and produce intellectual elite that think. Then you see everything falling in place. Until those three groups can conspire, because I call it they have to conspire. In America, the economic elite are working with the political elite. They are working along. In America, you can't just do things because you are a billionaire. There are laws that guide everything, and they all work with the capitalist rule. So that's what we need.
Thank you. And Sekou, you are right. The other day we were having a program. You said there's an economic warfare here. You have to fight. Let's read some comments here. Then we'll have Edward to respond. Edward, let me read them all, then you can respond. Vamandi Danso, as long as you meant to say African countries cannot manufacture some things, we will continue to depend on Western countries. Let's hear from Christopher Yanti. Then Africans should find their own solution. You blame the West all the time. The underdevelopment and backwardness of Africa is by Africans, not Europeans or Americans. Let's hear from Mr. Ability. You are absolutely correct, Brother Keller. IMF and the World Bank are institutions designed to undermine Africa progress in terms of infrastructure and human development. Let's hear from Vamandi Donso. Multi-party system is destroying African countries. I have a debate with that, but I'm not ready for today. Is your panelist saying democracy is responsible for Africa poverty? Let's continue yet. Vatingability, not only democracy, but globalization in terms of trade liberalization that kill our infant industry. The issue of Dogafle is another thing, right? Let's hear from Florence calling here. If we have good leaders, our resources will help us in the country and we will get out of poverty. And I agree with that. Let's hear from Mr. Yanti here. Africans should develop economic models that mirror the reality in their respective country. Democracy has never been the problem in Africa, but the way Africans go about election or electing presidents in their countries. They choose presidents on the basis of tribal, regional, or class. Liberia is a classic example. Let's hear from Florence again, but all the equipment that the company is supposed to work with, all are down and all are damaged, not operating. I think the person meant to say. I don't know. You're talking about those one that in Lofa, that one that history. John Mawolo. What are you saying in superficial? Why are you saying is superficial? Because it does not address the root cause. The war as is, if you don't have military power, you can't do anything. Well, I don't know if what kind of military power Taiwan has when Taiwan is doing well. Taiwan is doing well. Our leaders are African by birth, but execute their duties as slave masters. All over Africa, most of our leaders come from backgrounds that are not educated and mostly poor. I think meant to say poor implementation is the key in every sector. I couldn't agree with the issue of poor implementation there. Let me read the last one. Mr. Sie, you have spoken about owning a political party. It is what destroying Africa, because always people say my father is from APC. What does that mean? It means you can't find yourself in any other party. Well, Edward, please respond to all the comments there.
Well, thank you very much. In the first place, I don't think whether having a strong military is responsible for development into any part of the world, though it may help to protect your entity and try to make, if any aggression comes on your way, you can be able to protect yourself. Because like Singapore, you talk about Malaysia, other well-placed Africa, Western or Asian countries that are developed do not actually have strong military. Look at Singapore. You watch at those areas like Hong Kong. You may think that they are well developed, but they don't have strong military. Then, secondly, somebody was trying to ask for our educational background. I think it's good he or she asks, but it's not really necessary. That's why we are talking about. We are not talking about being too bookish here. We want a kind of skill education. It doesn't mean that we have people who are solving African problem without strong educational background. You may even see. Do you think that? Or take a common example. One of how many African leaders are highly educated? You talk the like of what Magufuli, who's just that he had a PhD. But it doesn't mean that it was because of his education that he wanted to develop Tanzania. It is because he had strong patriotic background. I think democracy is not actually destroying Africa, but the manner in which we make our own democratic mentality is what is destroying Africa. But the best way for democracies to transfer into African country peacefully is when you have carefully educated people who can be able to judge within the system. But if youth are given the opportunity to go and vote in the name of democracy, when they do not even know what they are voting for, which policy, they cannot even interpret their constitution, they don't read anything. How do you expect such democracy like that to work? And we watch at Africa, we should understand that what we are advocating for here is not the type of education system or development that you produce as Kelly and you are just highlighting. You may have a lot of things. Take common example, Sierra Leone have one of the best diamond that they normally produce into Africa. But out of those things, we hardly see anything reflecting on the country because we have no industry into Sierra Leone that is processing diamond to change it into finished goods. So I think what we need to do as African countries, try to get leaders that can change the system positively, those that are willing to change the soil of Africa for something that is beneficial for us. Thank you.
And Sekou, 1 minute to respond to the comments.
Yes, I agree with my brother right there. You know, the whole thing here we are dealing with is our system. I keep on repeating it. We have a bad system from the get-go, and every generation refuses to change that system. We are using two words that is always, for me, it means nothing. Is a vague word, development. Development is like a box, but there are a lot of content. What does it really mean? People always say, we want development, we want development. Where I can come and cut down all your trees and plant few flowers, and I say, that's development. So when a man build 1 kilometer of road, he say, I brought development. Countries that really want to develop, they don't use those terms development, they talk about revolution. They revolutionize, they go for industrial revolution. Key things need to be changed. They industrialize, they revolutionize the agricultural sector. They decide in 10 years or 1 decade, nobody should use all the outdated kind of tools to farm. We have to have tractors and machines. We have to mechanized farming in 10 years. We can decide in 10 years we should have electricity. That will bring about industrialization. That's the key. The entire nation rallied around and said we are looking for $1 billion to build a dam and electrify the entire nation. This is the way people go about, not just using the vague statement, development. When Biden came to power in America, he said, I need $1 trillion for infrastructure. And he worked towards it. Once the bill for that money comes, you will see infrastructure all over America. They say, oh, what happened? It's not about the slogan, development. You need to come up with a particular plan. Until now, Ellen came and left for Liberia, using Liberia as an example. George, what exactly is their impact? What's the legacy there? Is it infrastructure? Is it electricity? Is it road? Nothing. You're just using the word development.
All right, gentlemen, we have to leave it there. Let me get your closing comment. Let's start with you, Mr. Edward Amara. And this is the question I'm asking for you guys to close. Is there hope for Africa? 1 minute, please.
No, thank you. There is absolutely hope for Africa because we have young, talented, intelligent, and willing to change the society youth. The society. I think all we need to do is to change our way of thinking and change this archaic political system that are no longer working. Have a new political party that may have the philosophy of development, if not improvement. But there is absolute hope because our population is very young, irrespective of what we are undergoing. I'm convinced beyond reasonable doubt that Africa is on the space of development. Because if there was no hope, can you imagine Africa in the 90s is no longer Africa in the early 2000. Africa in 2021 will no longer be in Africa 2020 to 2020 or 2020, even to 2030. So there is hope. We believe that we are going to change this continent. Let's just keep our fingers crossed and believe that everything can happen, but we must be willing to change ourselves. We need a total attitudinal change, total commitment, total patriotism, and let's kick off from our archaic mentality developed by our forefathers. So thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Aaron. Sekou, is there hope?
Well, it's a simple question, but it's kind of difficult. First of all, I am not a pessimist. A pessimist, someone, he can just be in a, so when I get out there, I'm going to die. You just have that pessimistic view. Also, I'm not an optimist, because an optimist can be somebody you can drink and drive and say, by the grace of God, I will get home. And by the grace of God, you can still die. So I'm not an optimist. and I'm not a pessimist. I belong to the group category of people you call realists. That is, I do prediction based on the evidence presented before me, based on the facts, based on what I can calculate. So when it comes to the destiny of Africa, I say there is a possibility that Africa can survive all this. There's also a possibility that Africa might never survive this. Let us be realistic. If the generation we've been all expecting, a generation that will turn around the wheel, that will turn the trajectory, if that generation comes up, definitely Africa will make it. But as long as we don't have that revolutionary generation that will say no, and enough is enough, I'm telling you, we might likely be wiped out. North American, Native American have been wiped out. So we are dinosaurs, we are wiped out. Africa can be wiped out if they joke.
Thank you so very much. Like you, I don't know if there is hope for Africa. You may see some semblance of it when you look at certain things, but then when you look some places, you don't see any semblance of hope. It is estimated that 104 million children under age 5 are living in extreme poverty, while the number extends to 328 million for children under 18, World Bank 2016. These are the people that are supposed to be replacing us. These should be the leaders of Africa. These should be the innovators. But these are the ones that are living in poverty, and the history of poverty is you either die young or you don't get empowered educationally to be able to improve your own material condition. Is there hope for Africa? If you look at that statistic, you're scared. But then where is the hope? I see Africans in Europe playing football, for example, since we all relate to football. They are doing well. You look at France national team, it's completely African. You look at the national team of England, completely African. Is there hope for Africa? Yes, there will be hope for Africa. There may be hope for Africa if Africa educates, empowers, and if Africa is able to feed Africa, if Africa takes up its own education, then there is hope for Africa. Until we do that, I am still looking for that hope for Africa. And when I find that hope, I will come and tell you there is hope for Africa. But I have not seen that hope yet. I'm still looking. I see semblance of it here and there. It's realistic. We will find out because the history books never lie. On that note, folks, this is how we'll come to the end of Roundtable Africa. Thank you and bye-bye.
We all love you. We all love you. Labira is our home. Labira people. Labira.